Welcome into Words with Wallace. I'm your host, Nick Wallace. Coming at you, it's Wednesday, October 29th, and what an opening week in the NBA. Man, it was like content overflow. So much to talk about. It took me way too long even organizing my thoughts on what to prioritize to cover in this episode because there was just so much that happened. Feels like there's something interesting with every team. But just to give you like a synopsis, we had a double overtime game that really came down to the wire like 4 different times on opening night. You have the NBA back on NBC. You have 4 different 40-point games. You have an entirely new NBA media landscape that we need to touch on. An ascension from probably the best player in the NBA now. Can you say that? I don't know. You definitely can. Some incredible rookie performances. And oh yeah, a massive NBA gambling scandal highlighted by 2 arrests that took place last week just to top it all off. So loaded podcast today to give you guys a preview of what we're going to talk about. We are going to start with that gambling scandal, right? We need to at least address what took place there. I'm a Celtics fan. We're going to do a little Celtics Corner. We're going to be doing that on every episode moving forward. We have the opening night matchup, which I know is old news. It was like a week ago at this point, but I do want to talk about both the Thunder and the Rockets for a bit, cover all the 50-point games, cover the new NBA media landscape, and then finally we do have like a buy-sell segment that I want to do just with some teams that have run a little hot, some teams that have run cold. Am I buying that trend is going to stay? Am I selling that the team's actually going to turn it around? We'll discuss that. And then we have a quick rookie report to close things out as well. So loaded podcast. Hope you guys enjoy it. So let's get things started with this gambling scandal because this dominated all sports headlines, even though the NBA had plenty to talk about just with like the first 2 or 3 nights of action. Of course, you have a couple high profile arrests like what we have here. That's going to dominate the headline. So even though this information's old, I still wanted to cover it. This took place, I believe, almost a full week ago on last Thursday morning, in which we got the Shams notification that both head coach of the Portland Trailblazers, Chauncey Billups, and Terry Rozier, current player for the Miami Heat, were both arrested by the FBI for separate gambling incidents. So these were like investigations. These guys were under the gun of the FBI for, I think, years in the case of Terry Rozier and quite a while for Chauncey Billups as well. And so we want to cover what exactly took place here, what information that we have available. And starting with Chauncey Billups, we know that he was actually arrested for basically leading other people, and I believe like high-profile athletes, celebrities, etc., to rigged poker games. Like really bizarre stuff here. I mean, from what I read, and I didn't go fully into the weeds on it, but there was like cameras and glasses that had special things to detect what the card was going to be. Like the card shufflers were rigged as well. Like really crazy stuff, and just leading people to games that apparently he knew were fixed. And so basically they were stealing money from other people through these poker games. Now, he was mentioned in another report, and he basically fit the description. I mean, they described him as like a, former NBA player, and the career timeline of that perfectly matched up with Chauncey, and then said he's now a coach, and that timeline also matched up with Chauncey Billups. And so he was basically mentioned, but not by name, in a separate report where it described that he disclosed information to bettors about when he was going to tank games at the end of the 2023 season. So basically saying, hey, put money on the other team. We're going to rest our guys tonight. And look, I'm totally taking things out of context. That's not a direct quote right there, but you get the idea that he might have disclosed some of the decisions that he was going to make with the Blazers back in 2023, that gamblers, if they had that information available, could have profited off of it. And so Terry Rozier, his situation is totally different. It is a separate incident. They just launched both arrests at the same exact time. So there's some weird political stuff there I'm not going to get into. Like, apparently people really wanted to stick it to the NBA. They could have really done this at any point during the offseason, but they waited until the season started to really make more of a scene out of it. But whatever, we'll talk more about that in a second. But Rozier, his situation was pretty similar to that of Jontay Porter, who has since been banned for life. And if you remember, Jontay Porter was basically a bum on the Raptors. He's the brother of Michael Porter Jr., and he basically had people take his unders, and then he would either tank that game or take himself out of the game due to injury. And so Rozier, his situation is pretty similar, where he basically told people, hey, I'm going to take myself out of this game, and then he went back to his friends afterward and like pulled up at their house to count the money, according to the report. So anyways, I mean, there was a whole like NBA Twitter investigation into Terry Rozier and all of his lowlights, so to speak. So that one isn't entirely surprising. We knew the NBA actually took a closer look at Terry Rozier and investigated those events themselves, and they found that he wasn't at fault. So definitely more information to come on both of these cases. But in the meantime, Both guys are away from the team. They're both placed on an unpaid leave that was announced today by the NBA, both Rozier and Chauncey Billups. So where I'm at with it, people have all sorts of opinions saying that it's tainting the league and it's a horrible look for the NBA. I think it's just tremendous content with where we are at right now. Like, I understand this could have larger implications about, has sports betting gone too far, and why do we have these player props and the ability to take unders on like random role players on not important teams? Like, why you're just kind of setting yourself up for information to get out and for this stuff to happen, I guess. But I just think it's great content. Like, sure, this could be the tip of the iceberg, and there could be and there will be more figures involved, but the way I look at it is like, who really gives a shit? I mean, I love the NBA more than anybody, but Scary Terry, love him, former Celtic, whatever. His career took a sharp downturn the second he was traded away from the Charlotte Hornets. Once he arrived in Miami, I don't know if he was washed, I don't know if he was caught too deep in this gambling stuff, but his career was taking a nosedive. He wasn't a relevant player, and then look, Chauncey, beloved NBA figure, like really weird turn for him. Like, I was reminding some of my teammates at work that he was like a former finals MVP. Like, this guy was beloved, Mr. Big Shot, like, beloved by many teams, not just his time in Detroit, and then, had a nice career as a coach here in the NBA for the past couple years as well. So this is pretty surprising, but like, he's the head coach of the Blazers. Like, they're not making any real noise this year. Sorry to any Blazers fans listening. So I think it's just really fascinating to see how this happened, and I feel even better about it knowing that Chauncey's stuff, at least not yet, is not related to anything that he did on the court. There is a bigger scandal about even the guys that aren't necessarily, doing this intentionally, and guys aren't necessarily betting on themselves or taking their unders and telling people to bet on it. But there is something to be said about these star players, or really any player, giving information away to others that can then bet on that, right? I think there was a separate report where LeBron might have been mentioned, because I know his friend Damon Jones, a former NBA player and coach, was also arrested as well for like taking information that he got from his league connections, and then either he would bet on it or he'd have somebody else bet on it. LeBron gives you the heads up that he's not going to be playing that night. People can make money off that one way or another. Maybe they take the overs of his teammates, maybe they take LeBron's unders, whatever that looks like, right? It's all over the place. The gambling stuff isn't going away. They probably wouldn't know about this as much if gambling was still illegal, but obviously you can't go 4 seconds in any broadcast without DraftKings or FanDuel or whoever being mentioned or having an ad. So there is more to come. I think for now it's tremendous content. I still don't see any like high profile NBA guys just getting wrapped up in this. Like, we're not going to see LeBron mentioned. We're not going to see LeBron punished. We're not going to see anybody of his caliber mentioned in this, because I think the guys at the top of their game, they're not getting wrapped up in this bullshit. They know all their money is to be made on the court and the opportunity that's in front of them just to play in the NBA. And look, I do think for what it's worth, like, the NBA is going to make such an example out of these guys as well. Like Chauncey Billups, realistically, his career as a coach in the NBA is probably over. Like Terry Rozier, like we said, his career was kind of taking a nosedive, but his career is over, just like it was over for Jonte Porter, who's since been banned for life from the NBA. Like, the NBA is going to make such an example out of these guys, where, like, that's what makes me feel more confident that we are not going to see more names fall victim to this, because they're really going to distance themselves. I think we're going to see some things change with the player props, what's being available, not being able to take unders on guys to avoid situations like this. And I think if there were any other high-profile guys wrapped up in this particular FBI investigation, they probably would have been arrested last week as well, because now they know if you are a player tied up on this, maybe you have time to kind of clean your tracks a little bit. So I think the NBA is still an honest product. I don't think it's fixed. I don't think this is going to be a big deal, but we will cover this story as more information is available, along with the aspiration story and every other NBA scandal that's taken place over the past couple months. So, extremely hard pivot from a gambling scandal into my Boston Celtics. We are going to be debuting a new segment, Celtics Corner. I mean, we were basically doing this every episode anyways. I would talk about the Celtics in some capacity, but I'm just going to carve out more time at the beginning of the show to talk about them, because I don't know how this season's going to go, right? It started pretty rough. Like, we started 0-3, really down in the dumps, and now at the time of recording, we just beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, so we're on a nice little 2-game win streak, and we look a lot better the last 2 games. So opening night, I do want to start there and cover that game, because it was so distracting. I'm trying to sit here, watch the team, get familiar with guys like Minot and Garza and Hugo Gonzalez when he plays and whatever. And it's just totally distracting that we are getting clapped by VJ Edgecombe, and this rookie is just stealing the show. I mean, he was so damn good. I couldn't stop watching him on offense, on defense. I think he finished the game with like 35 points or something like that in the debut. He did miss a couple clutch free throws that didn't end up biting the Sixers in the ass, and they did come away with the win. But he was just so distracting in that game, and nobody on the Celtics had the athleticism to stay in front of him. Like, you definitely feel the loss of Drew Holiday in a game like that. So that was pretty rough. And we follow that up with a pretty rough loss to the New York Knicks as well, in which we literally could not grab a rebound on the defensive end of the court to save our life. Same exact story against another big physical team in Detroit. They took care of us pretty easily the following game. We did bounce back a little bit in that game against the Pelicans, who are off to a rough start. They have their own injuries that they're dealing with. They didn't have Zion in that game, and they're already one of the league's smaller teams, to be honest with you. So they were at the point where we're a couple games into the season. They were running out DeAndre Jordan for real minutes, and love DeAndre Jordan. Seems like a great guy, but shouldn't be in the NBA at this point in his career. He's pretty washed up. So I didn't really take much from the Pelicans loss, but I did want to spend some time real quick on that Cleveland game. I actually missed part of the first half, but seeing that run that the Celtics had at the end of the first half and that real pop in the Garden for the first time as the Celtics were making a big run at the end of the first half, JB was on like an all-time heater, hitting some crazy shots, including like a ridiculous step back at the end of the half as time is expiring. Like, you knew he had guys open. He wasn't making that pass. He was taking the last shot, barely created enough separation, and just shoots an absolute moon ball, and the Garden's going crazy. So it was nice to see the crowd involved like that. For the most part, going back to Jaylen Brown, I really like how he's playing. I think the handle in general looks a lot better. I mean, he's averaging 4 turnovers a game, but with that type of usage, you can expect that. He is running hot, like, across the board. Like, he's not going to continue to make threes at a 50% clip. He's not going to continue to knock down jumpers like he's doing. But for the most part, it's hard to tell because he is running so hot, but I feel like I'm okay with the shot diet that he's taking, right? Like, he's going to get heat checky at times. He's going to have some looks you wish you could have back, but he's allowed to have a longer leash with the team that we have here, especially because Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, obviously love those guys. Like, they are not shooting the ball well right now. I think they're both, like, PP is shooting like under like 15% from 3 or something like that, I think. Like, White is shooting like 25% as well. Like, they're still playing great ball. I like what I've seen from them. I like the rebounding from Pritchard. We desperately need it. But until those guys start making shots, we need to have some energy guys and some of these like unknown younger guys that we have in the team to give us something. And earlier in the season against the Knicks, Hugo Gonzalez had a massive game, and he was just like everywhere. Like, his energy was infectious. It's really hard to stand out just for effort alone on an NBA court, but he did that in that game. And Joe Mazzulla showed right away, hey, we're concerned about the rebounding. Like, I'm going to reward guys. Immediately the next game, Hugo Gonzalez gets to start in like his 3rd NBA game or whatever that was, which is insane. Did he deserve to start? Like, I don't know. Like, talent-wise, probably not. But it is kind of cool that Mazzulla's trying to set this culture of like, hey, if you work hard enough, like, then you're going to play. And we need to work that hard because we don't have the horses, especially in the front court at this point in time. And so that game against the Knicks, it was Hugo. And tonight, it was Josh Minott. He was unbelievable. He was our best rebounder tonight. He was in the right spots on the right time on offense. And I really liked what I saw from him. So again, it is fun. It makes these wins feel a lot more special when the expectations are in the basement. It's a totally different situation than what we had watching the Celtics the previous few years. But beating a team like the Cavs at home, like, was awesome. I mean, that's been a mini rivalry. All the games have been super entertaining. Mitchell has killed us really his entire career. And I know they're missing Garland. They might have been missing some other guys as well. But to have that win against a big team in Cleveland, like, that's the first win of the season that I'm actually excited about. So all things considered, I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's still early. I don't want to make any like sweeping generalizations about the Celtics, especially since the feelings tonight are very different than what they were after the 3rd game of the season. I still think at best we're sneaking into like a low playoff spot in the East, but it's not going to be easy because these teams are trending big and the rebounding is going to continue to rear its head, right? Like, the bodies that we have in the front court are probably the bodies that we're going to have all year long for the most part. Like, maybe eventually Amari Williams starts getting some minutes or whatever, or we pull up a random G League guy. But beyond that, like, there's just no urgency to make a move, right? This is very much a gap year. It's very much a reset year. We're not going to make any moves that don't also benefit the team in future seasons. So unless you get some young big man that's kind of breaking out or whatever, like, I don't really see us making a move. There's not going to be an urgency to get better this year just because we have a gaping hole in the front court. And, the offensive rebounding numbers are fine. Like, those are a little bit confusing anyways, and the sample size this early in the season is really small. But the defensive rebounding numbers are abysmal, or at least, especially they were after the first 3 games, and especially those 2 games against New York and Detroit. Like, we could not grab a rebound at any point, and it kind of makes sense. We just don't have the size. We don't have like the talent, the ability. Like, we're just going to have to outwork guys or scheme up ways to survive in the defensive glass. And I'm not going to let one encouraging win at Cleveland just kind of change how I think about that. So with that in mind, like the ceiling of this team is still pretty low. I really, really don't want to rush back Jason Tatum. I don't want to be counting on him to put the cape on. But what I will say is we have seen just how valuable Tatum is. Like I do think this early Celtics returns is like a good look for Jason Tatum. I've said all of last year he was like our best team defender for how valuable he was. He was also our best rebounder for the better part of the last 2 seasons. Like he is just such a monster to this team. And I know there's some other losses as well, but that's what we've really felt so far in the season. So while the expectations are still low, this team is going to have the ability to beat anybody on any given night. I also like what I've seen from Anthony Simons. It seems like he's giving more effort on the defensive end than he ever did in Portland. The shot isn't falling at a super high clip, but you still see what he's capable of doing in creating his own shot. So I'm enjoying watching the Celtics team. I still think we maybe sneak in as like a low playoff seed in the East, but I don't expect to drastically shake it up anytime soon. Next topic I want to cover is the opening night matchup between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Houston Rockets. I don't want to like go through that full game, even though it was amazing, because it is basically a week old, or maybe a little bit over that at this point in time. But what a way for the NBA to return to NBC and just return this season with a double overtime thriller in which OKC barely survived the Houston Rockets. I will say at the end of the first overtime, that moment where Kevin Durant clearly called the timeout when they were out of timeouts, like that should have ended the game right there. Like no questions asked. He called timeout. Everybody heard it. Everybody saw it. And so that would have been very funny as like a guy who is just notorious for going at people on Twitter if he just had his own little mini Chris Webber moment that people are going to remind him of the rest of his career. I mean, they probably still will. You know, the people on Twitter don't forget anything, but it would have been even funnier if he did lose the game on that. So ultimately the right team won in OKC. I didn't love seeing Shea win it at the free throw line, even though it was a foul on Kevin Durant in that situation. But there were just so many moments throughout that game. Şengün was gunning from 3. He looked like the Rockets' best player. Amen Thompson, before he cramped up, was unbelievable and initiated a lot of the Rockets' offense late. And so I will talk about the Rockets in a second, but I do want to tip my cap to the defending champs because I almost wasn't going to talk about them in this episode, but I had to find a way to work them in because they look incredible. Like I just need to show some respect there. Shea had a 55-point game right after he had the opening night against the Rockets where he was amazing. It was a 55-point game against the Indiana Pacers that also went into double overtime, so really unique that OKC was able to play 2 clutch games early in the season when they were so used to blowing everybody out last year. It's insane how many clutch moments Shea has already had. That game was a thriller against Indiana as well, and shout out Ben Mathurin. He had like a 36-point game while also guarding Shea on the other end of the court, which was super impressive. And I just feel terrible for Indiana, who we're going to talk more about later. But OKC's 5-0. They look like the best team in the NBA. They're doing all of this without Jalen Williams. And to make matters worse for the rest of the NBA, they seem to have done it again because AJ Mitchell is now a staple in this rotation. He's playing even more minutes, obviously, without Jalen Williams, like we just mentioned. And he's averaging 18, 4, and 3 on the season. And just looks awesome as a backup point guard, like has so much poise out there, an ability to score the ball, looks comfortable, can obviously defend like everybody in OKC can. And I don't want to act like he completely came out of nowhere, like he played some minutes last year. I actually remember specifically he got some minutes during game 1 of the finals, like we were at a bar in Nashville, like watching it. And I didn't even know who that was. Like Connor had to tell me, oh, I think that's AJ Mitchell. And like I had heard the name, but I didn't even recognize that he played for the Thunder at that point. So the fact that you're pulling out this guy who was barely a part of the rotation last year and is immediately stepping up in a major way. I think he was like a 2nd-round pick of a couple years ago. Like that just shows the farm system that OKC has is top notch, and they're going to be really well positioned this year, even without Jalen Williams. So pivoting to the other team in that matchup, the Houston Rockets, wondering, does Houston have a problem here, right? They did lose the following game to Detroit, and then they bounced back with a couple easy wins. I think they beat the Raptors tonight, and they also beat the Nets, and I'm already at the point where I'm not counting net stats because they're just so terrible, and they're just so much worse than every other team. But the problem with Houston that was on display, especially in opening night, lies with Reed Sheppard, right? You go through that horrible Fred VanVleet injury right at the end of the offseason, and so suddenly the door is wide open for Reed Sheppard. It already was with the departure of Cam Whitmore and whatnot, and Jalen Green being shipped out as well. But now without Fred VanVleet, they need Reed Sheppard. Now, they didn't start him in that game, and even though that was the case, they still played him real minutes, and he had a rough opening night. I mean, he had some weird turnovers. He was like a little heat checky without ever really getting hot in the game. Like, the shot looks good, but overall his confidence and like just general comfortability on the court is pretty low. And it already just feels like Ime is just not on the same page as the front office that drafted this guy because, they started Steven Adams in the opening night with the massive lineup that they rolled out. And since then, for the most part, I believe they've been starting Josh Okogie, who's been a journeyman. Like, obviously, he is a dog on defense. That's what he's known for. So it's no surprise that Ime is going to reward that guy. But the thought of Houston a couple months ago starting Josh Okogie a couple games into the season when there's no real injuries besides Van Vliet, who's obviously not coming back, is crazy. Like, that guy, it just doesn't belong to start on any NBA team, to be totally honest with you, especially a team as talented as Houston. So that shows where Ime's head's at. Reed Sheppard rightfully deserves this window here to show if he can carve out real minutes. I'm not saying he has to be the starting point guard by the end of the year, but he has to be a reliable option. He has to be a reliable ball handler, especially. I see more teams leaning into the press, just tiring guys out at the start of this season. Like, you need somebody else to take the pressure off guys like Amen Thompson, off Şengün, off Kevin Durant. Those are going to be the guys initiating the offense at the end of the game. You need somebody to lighten that burden, hit open shots. Reed has great hands on defense. He does hold up better than you'd think for somebody his size, but the Thunder really attacked him in that opening night matchup, and I'm interested to see, as I watch more Rockets games, if he can develop. But if he doesn't, if things continue on this pace, I do think that Houston, they don't necessarily have a problem, but they will need to address that position. They are going to be very active at the deadline if things stay the way that they are, looking to acquire some guard depth in some capacity. And if they get a real guy, then they will be real contenders. I mean, I think they're already in that conversation, but if they get one more guy in the backcourt, if they had Fred VanVleet, let's say, then I'd really feel comfortable from what I've seen from Houston so far about this team's chances to win the title. Moving on to the next topic here, I just want to show a little bit of love when guys score 50 points. Called me old school, that still means something to me as a hooper myself, and we have already had 4 50-point performances in this young season. We just mentioned Shea's 55-point game against Indiana, I think the second game of the season. Again, insane how many clutch moments and minutes he's already played. Like, I wouldn't pick him for Clutch Player of the Year just because I figured OKC would be blowing everybody out again. But if he continues to get this run in clutch moments, like, he's going to make the shots. His mid-range is so unstoppable. His game is just so well-suited for an end-of-game situation. You can say whatever you want about the foul baiting, but that guy has such a deep bag and such an insane arsenal of moves that he can go to for those exact situations when the clock is ticking down that, he's always going to be a threat. And that's what makes OKC so dangerous at the end of those games. Aaron Gordon had a 50-point game to go along with 10 threes in a loss to Golden State last Thursday night as well. I mean, I'm really encouraged with what I've seen from Denver. I know they were my pick to win it all, so that's no surprise. But, Jokic kind of came into the season pretty chunky, so that's worth noting. I don't think I've ever seen him in such bad shape to start a year. Like, he's going to be fine. He's had like a triple-double every game. He's going to play himself into shape, whatever. But Aaron Gordon's locked in. Jamal Murray's locked in. The bench guys immediately, like the fact that I'm looking at Nuggets box scores and I'm not seeing like a -12 for everybody on Denver's bench when they play a competent team already shows that they're light years ahead of where they were last year. And Aaron Gordon is just like already a lock for like the Nuggets Hall of Fame. I don't know if the Nuggets do that, if every team does, but if there is one, he's going to be in it because they love him in Denver. He totally turned his career around. The three-point shooting is off the charts. He's not going to run that hot very often, but he is a very capable three-point shooter. He's a perfect lob threat. He's a great, versatile defender. Like, again, people talk about Jamal Murray never making an all-star team, and it is a tragedy because he does have the talent to do it. But it's hard. It's easier said than done in a loaded Western Conference. But Aaron Gordon should be right there because obviously Jokic is the one in that team, but it's like a 2A, 2B with Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray for how valuable he is to that team. And Cam Johnson has a chance to be in that conversation as well. Moving on to the next 50-point game, we had a 50-14 game from Lauri Markkanen. He absolutely cooked the Suns. I know the Suns' defense has been abysmal. Like, the few moments I've watched of the Suns, they just look disinterested in defense. That's the best way I can put it, which isn't a huge surprise with the personnel that they have there. But it's fun. I love this Jazz tradition of just, like, starting the year hot every single year before they inevitably tank. So it is a good reminder of what Lauri Markkanen and the Utah Jazz are capable of when they're actually trying to win for a few games every year. And maybe there's building up Lauri's trade value for him to be a massive chip come February. But either way, I love Lauri Markkanen. I bought so much stock when he had that first like breakout season in Utah, and last year was really disappointing. He was banged up and just rested a lot down the stretch and just didn't look like the same guy. So that was a cool game to see regardless. And then finally, probably the most impressive 50-point game we've had yet, Austin Reeves scored a 51-point near triple-double. I think he was like an assist away against the Kings. And this is without Luka, without LeBron. Luka is banged up. He's expected to be back within the next few games after looking amazing the first couple games of the Lakers season. But Austin Reeves followed up his 50-point game with 41 in a loss against Portland. So this is just interesting, man. Every time I watch Austin Reeves, I continue to be so impressed with him. Like, everybody knows he's good. Everybody knows he's an extremely talented scorer. He's like a perfect second option, and he's overqualified as a third option on this Lakers team. But his stock just keeps going up. What he's adding, like, this was a very efficient 50-point game, to say the least. Like, nearly a triple-double. I think he had 22 free throw attempts in that game. Like, he's getting to the line. He's not just scoring from the outside. His game against Portland as well, he was super efficient again. Like, he could just score all over the place. He's also a fantastic playmaker. Like, again, his stock just continues to rise. And so it is going to be pretty interesting to see the fit between all three of these guys. I know we saw it for a good chunk last year with LeBron and Luka and Austin Reeves with everybody's healthy, but I don't know. I'm not convinced on the rest of that Lakers cast, right? Like, DeAndre Ayton has been very much himself to start the year for the Lakers. We'll say that. And, you know, Ruiz carved himself out a nice role. But beyond that, I just don't really trust anybody else on that Lakers team. And it just seems like they have such a deep need in the front court more than the back court right about now. And so if they were forced to make a move, like, Austin Reeves' trade stock is just climbing through the roof. Like, he would command such a haul at the deadline. Like, maybe the Lakers are forced to do that because no matter how good Austin Reeves is, like, Luka is still the team there. Like, maybe you could even make the argument they'd be more likely to look to move LeBron, if that's even possible with his contract, before they move Austin Reeves just because of his age and how good he's been. Like, I would have sounded crazy saying that a couple weeks ago, but I just feel like what he's shown in this early season is not a fluke. I know it's due to the usage that he has without those other two guys in the court, but I'm buying what he's selling because it's looked good, it's been efficient, and I think that guy's a real star in this league. Now, we covered the gambling scandal earlier in this podcast, which is arguably the most negative NBA storyline that's come out of the young season, but I think the most positive storyline has to be the new media landscape. And maybe I'm just a nerd for this stuff because I bought this microphone and I obviously have a passion for the NBA as well as the media behind it. And maybe you guys don't care as much as me, but I am really fascinated by how this NBA season has been covered so far. So we have like three main broadcasts at this point in time, and let's start with the new ones, starting with the NBA on NBC. This has already become my favorite broadcast to watch. It's really not that close, and I know it's like the new shiny toy, but that opening night was so cool, like going back and, you know, seeing the round ball rock, seeing the production behind it, seeing how they got in and out of the commercial breaks, seeing what they did for the halftime segments. Like, I really enjoyed it. I think Mike Tirico is just incredible. Like, it's really unique for me to hear him call basketball games. I remember he randomly called a Celtics game with Scal last season, like a random game that wasn't on national TV, just for him to get some reps doing basketball. I guess, again, I think he did basketball at some point before I was really that locked in. But regardless, I'm used to hearing him on football. He's amazing with basketball too. I mean, Reggie Miller is Reggie Miller. Like, I think he had a good opening night. I didn't really pay attention to the last broadcast that he had, but I do love that Jamal Crawford is getting this opportunity as the third man. Like, talk about a guy I love watching, and I think as a commentator, he's been pretty strong so far as well. But I'd say the best thing with the NBC, and I sound like I sound like a fanboy here, but I am like completely infatuated with the Michael Jordan segments. And I know it's kind of weird, like, we didn't know he was a special contributor for NBC. We didn't exactly know what those segments were going to look like, but every time that guy talks, like, I want to hear it. And maybe it's just because he hasn't had a media presence to date, and so we don't really know his opinions on this type of stuff. Like, he hasn't really been in the public eye all that much since he retired, at least as far as I know. And even though it was just like a pre-recorded interview with Mike Tirico at Jordan's house is what it appeared like, it was still really good. I mean, the first one he talks about how he hasn't picked up a basketball basically in years, and then he told the story of like shooting a free throw in front of a kid and he was nervous and whatever. You guys should look it up. It was entertaining. And then the one with the broadcast last night was actually a take on load management, which was pretty fascinating as well. I mean, I was, for one, thought he was going to have a very progressive take on load management, but I was, surprised to find out he's not a fan. So anyways, you're going to have to listen to that, give me your thoughts. I think the real load management question is somewhere in the middle. I think Jordan has a point about wanting to put on for the fans that pay to see you, but I also think the game is more demanding than ever before. And if the analytics say, maybe rest a couple games and, the schedule's too long, I think multiple things can be right at the same time. And I do think the NBA schedule is way too many games, but I know that's been the case for a long time. So apologies for the tangent there, but I love the MJ stuff. It will be fascinating to see if they can give him bags and bags of money to actually get him in the studio at some point. Like, I'm wondering when the clips from this pre-recorded Mike Tirico interview run dry, like, is it going to get them through a month, 2 months? I don't know. Like, I don't really foresee him being in the studio until at least the playoffs, but could we get him in the studio for those moments? Or like, I don't think NBC is going to have the finals, but can we get him there for like the conference finals or something like that? Like, that'd be really cool to get his live take on a game and see if we get any tidbits there. Maybe he's not good at it, but I'm going to be interested to hear what he has to say either way. So I love the NBA on NBC. It's been a really cool experience so far. I could do without Grant Hill on the B team. I mean, rough opening night for Grant Hill. I mean, he was like, don't be fooled by Steph Curry's baby face. This man is an assassin. And it's like, all right, man, he's on like his second decade in the NBA. He's just been one of the best players in the league for however many years. He's got 4 rings. I think we know about Steph Curry, but appreciate that warning, Grant. Let's move on to the Amazon Prime broadcast of the NBA. Honestly, haven't watched enough of that, but I do think the studio show has been pretty unique. Like, they have Harlan on the call. They have one of the Eagles on the call as well. I mean, that's always great. Those guys are fantastic. But I do think the studio show there has been pretty interesting. I love hearing from Dirk. I think some of the segments I've seen and like the tech that they use and kind of reenacting like motions and different things that they're seeing during the game has actually been pretty cool. Very different than what we're accustomed to. So for the most part, I like Prime. I like that, again, there's more competition in the marketplace. I think it's just great to have 2 new groups having access to the NBA. So far, I like it. I will say that the theme song on Prime is a little dramatic, right? They really leaned into like what they are thinking is like their own like new classic type of song that's supposed to be nostalgic at the same time. It's like, bro, it's year one. You're not going to have a round ball rock, and that's okay. Maybe they just got round ball rock pilled because we can't go one commercial break without hearing it, an ad for NBC and that being in it. So anyway, Prime, haven't seen enough of it, but I like it so far. And then finally, the last broadcast that we need to talk about is still positive here, going with ESPN. I think it's been way better than what it was in previous years. They had to step their game up with Prime and NBC coming into the marketplace. Starting off with the decision to promote Tim Legler from like the B team broadcast to the A team broadcast. So now he kind of bumped out Doris Burke, and now he's on the call with Breen and Richard Jefferson. And I really like that trio. I mean, Breen is just like the GOAT. He's the best. He's my favorite play-by-play guy, really, in any sport. So anybody with him I'm going to enjoy in some capacity. But personally, I'm not a Doris Burke guy. I know there might be some fans out there. I'm just not one of them. So I think Legler, his insights are great. I think he's just so smart. It'll be interesting to see how some of his longer form stuff translates to games. I enjoyed him on calls last year. And I think it's kind of a hot take that I like Richard Jefferson. I know people have mixed opinions on him as well, but I do think the ESPN A team got a lot better this offseason. And for the most part, of course, the studio show here bearing the lead yet again. Inside the NBA with Chuck and Shaq and Kenny and Ernie, like that, for the most part, seems untouched. It seems like they very much brought it over. There were some funny comments from Charles Barkley about working for ESPN, which was to be expected. But look, even if the show is worse, even if they mess with it, it's still going to be infinitely better than cutting to Big Perk during the halftime of a big game on ESPN. So for the most part, I love it. I think NBA media is in a way better spot. I think the only thing that you can say negative about it is that the extra subscriptions and the extra complications of where to watch games is a nightmare. Like, even I need to buy Peacock now. I thought I could avoid it because I get NBC through YouTube TV, but randomly, like, the game last night was blocked out on YouTube TV, even though it was supposed to be on NBC. So I don't know, man. It's a nightmare, like, figuring that out. People's parents trying to figure that out. That's a freaking nightmare, but I will need to buy Peacock, but I do think the quality of the broadcast is going to be worth it, especially for the nerds like myself that are going to watch the game anywhere that is played. Finally, let's get into a little bit of buy and sell. So this is always like the really difficult episode to record because you have all these games suddenly being played. The standings are a complete dumpster fire with what teams are going to hold, what teams are going to completely switch the course that they're on right now. So let's dive into it, because I think if you were a casual NBA fan and you just looked at the standings, I think all of these teams being where they are at this point in the season would stand out. So let's start off in the Eastern Conference, and let's start off with the 4-0 Philadelphia 76ers. And again, I am recording this in the middle of a 10-game slate on Wednesday, October 29th. So the Sixers might be playing, they might lose, they might win, I don't know. I watched the Celtics, that's really about it for the games tonight, so forgive me if some of these records are off, but I needed to record this podcast at some point. But before today, the 76ers were 4-0 and the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. So am I buying? Am I selling? I'm buying. I'm buying the 76ers. I mean, we got to start things off by talking about Tyrese Maxey. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but he's averaging basically 40 points a game. He's been in and around 40 points every single game this year and looks unbelievable. And a lot of people are saying he took a leap, which I do believe there was some leap there, but I got to defend my guy Maxey. He was putting up bonkers numbers last year too, but it was one of those things where the rest of the Sixers were so depleted. Like there were no guys out there with him, and this was kind of pre-Quentin Grimes because they started resting Maxey at the end of the year too to really lean into the tank and whatever. But he was awesome last year. It was just hard to be like, oh, are you just putting up those stats because the team sucks and you're taking a million shots? But he's shooting an insane clip from three. He's just such a special athlete with his speed. Like you cannot stay in front of that guy. He's a 3-level scorer at this point in time, and he gives you good effort and energy on the defensive end of the court as well. So he is the franchise player at this point in time. There's really no question about that. We talked about VJ Edgecombe a little bit, talking about his debut against the Celtics. I mean, the best way I can describe what I've seen from VJ Edgecombe is he looks like Anthony Edwards, who again was the number 1 overall pick, but like in year 3. Like he just looks further ahead than even Anthony Edwards was after they drafted him. Now, I'm not saying he's going to end up being better than Ant or whatever, but I'm just telling you the early returns of how comfortable he is as an athlete. And look, the Celtics left him wide open. He was bombing threes that night, but I think for the most part, he's shot well from 3, which I know Ant really didn't have until a couple years into his career. But the athleticism is just jumping out at you. Like it is insane. People are saying some Dwayne Wade comps as well. Like all that is on the table for this guy. The story is unbelievable. I'm very upset that I didn't at least mention him as my rookie of the year pick or mention him at least as a sleeper, because I think on some betting sites he's actually surpassed Cooper Flagg as a favorite already just with the numbers that he's putting up. But this Maxey Edgecombe backcourt is for real. That's what's going to carry this Sixers team. I'm buying it. By the way, Quentin Grimes is the best contract in the NBA, signing that 1 year, like $8 million qualifying offer. He was an RFA this past year. Like that stretch he had at the end of the year for the Sixers also proving to be real. I know the numbers were a bit inflated because he was the only guy playing at this point in time, but he's a two-way player. He plays hard. He's a perfect guy coming off the bench, and it is the guards that are going to carry this Sixers team. Adam Bona is also like a real rim protector. He's a real energy big, which is really nice because honestly, I wasn't even sure without Yabusele who like that fellow front court mate for Joel Embiid was going to be. They also started Dominic Barlow, who I think is banged up, but looked pretty good against the Celtics for what that's worth. So Bona's a real player coming off the bench. It helps him survive the non-Embiid minutes. And so that kind of brings us to, again, Embiid and Paul George and what those guys are going to give this team. Now, Embiid looked like a shell of himself in game 1. I think he played in 1 preseason game. So essentially that was the ramp up is what we saw opening night against the Celtics, but he looked horrible, like completely washed up, couldn't get up and down the court. In the few games since then, it has been better. I think he even had like a 25-point game in 20 minutes against some shit team. It was either the Hornets or the Wizards or something like that. Embiid always gets up for those games. Like, you got to give him credit there. So I do think Embiid's going to play his way into shape at some point. I am optimistic that he's not totally washed here. Paul George, I am less optimistic because he hasn't played at all and had a pretty significant surgery in the offseason on that knee that's been bothering him. So that's kind of the thing is like, is it a Ewing theory effect when these guys come back and that's going to totally derail the rest of the team? I don't know. But for now, if those guys are additive in some way, if they can just buy in and accept that this is Maxey's team at this point in time, I am buying them as a playoff team. I'm not buying them as a top 3 seed or whatever, but I think I had them slotted in as like the 7 seed in the East. Maybe they can even creep up to like a 6 seed or the 5 seed because I am buying what I've seen from Philly this far. Next team here, we have your 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference, the 3-0 Chicago Bulls. Am I buying? Am I selling? I feel like I gotta sell. I gotta sell on the Bulls. It's gonna take more time for me to actually buy in. I'm not saying that this team can't sneak into the playoffs with how open the East is. I mean, Buzelis is awesome. I haven't watched them enough to be totally honest with you, but from what I have seen, like the team is just running red hot from 3. It's not like they had like a cupcake schedule. I want to say they beat like Orlando and Detroit and Atlanta, which are like the 3 like middle class teams in the East that are kind of jockeying for position, but it's just going to take more time for me to buy in. I mean, Kobe White is out, and so theoretically they could be getting a boost similar to what we just described with Philly, but there's a lot of ball dominant guys on the Bulls, and Josh Giddey, we saw him off the ball in OKC. That didn't work out too well We saw Trey Jones, like, again, he's more of a backup point guard, but he does prefer to have the ball in his hands. DeSumo, like, they're just very guard heavy, and I just wonder, adding another primary ball handler guy in the mix in Kobe White, what does that look like? I do think White is a little bit better off the ball, so I think most of the offense will run through Giddey, but for the most part, I'm not there. I'm not there with the talent on the team. I'm certainly not there with the coaching, but I will say Matas Buzelis is legit. He's awesome. He's real. He's spectacular. Hopefully he replaces Patrick Williams in that starting lineup once everybody's healthy. I think he's already starting for the team. But for the most part, I like some of the players in the Bulls. I can't get there as like they're going to be in the playoffs, no questions. This could just be a hot start, in my opinion. Next team in the East here, the Magic, are 1-4. They are the number 13 seed in the East. That is quite the discrepancy from me predicting them to be the 2 seed on my last episode. So I'm not happy about it. I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell that the Magic are going to be this bad because they're just too talented to not be better at some point. They have to at least be a playoff team in the East. Maybe the 2 seed is already off the table, but this Orlando team, stop me if you've heard this before, they can't shoot. They still can't shoot. And I didn't like the Desmond Bane trade. I will say that. I was much lower than consensus. I don't think Desmond Bane is that guy. He's streaky. He's not just like an automatic 40% knockdown shooter. Like, I've watched Desmond Bane not be able to hit the hoop in so many big games. I can't even describe it. And he's shooting like 20-something% from 3. He's been really bad so far. Filled in nicely for KCP, who also lost all of his ability to shoot as soon as he joined the Orlando Magic. So, for the most part, I am going to sell because, again, I think this team is too talented. At least Jalen Suggs is out there. He's playing. He's actually the only one that can shoot right about now. Most of this disappointment lies at the feet of Paolo Banchero, who has just been really struggling as an outside shooter, struggling from 3, settling for too many mid-ranges. I think he's going to turn it around. I've always been a Paolo guy. I think that guy's way too talented. But the bench has taken a real hit, too. It looks like Jonathan Isaac is basically washed at this point in time. So it's rough. I mean, 1-4 with the Magic. I can't wait to watch them a little bit closer. I do want to watch a full game from start to finish for them. But as of right now, I'm going to sell. I think they're too talented to not turn it around. And the final team in the East that we need to talk about, the Indiana Pacers, who, again, are playing a game against the Dallas Mavericks right now. I'm not sure how that game is going. They're 0-3, at least before today, that they were. And as much as it pains me to do it, I think I need to buy that this is just going to be a nightmare season for the Pacers. They showed that flash in that OKC game, and that's really got me conflicted on this one. This is probably like my hardest buy-sell that we've had. Like, they looked so good in that game. They're so well coached. Mathurin was unbelievable. Nembhard only played a few minutes before getting hurt in that game, but they are just so banged up already, and it was already going to be a tall task for them to even be in the mix for making the playoffs, even in the East. Like, to give you the list of injuries, obviously Halliburton's out for the year. Mathurin's going to be out for, I don't know, there's not an exact timeline there. Same thing with Nembhard. Both those guys are hurt. McConnell hasn't played yet. Even Obi Toppin is out today. Like, there's something wrong with his foot. He was awesome for the team this season. Like, they're just so banged up already. They just feel like they're going to have, like, the snake-bitten year, at least of the teams in the Eastern Conference. So I can't get there with them right about now. They're 0-3. They're probably going to be 0-4 after tonight. I mean, Siakam's balling. They're still really well coached. I believe when those guys are healthy, they can be a threat, but at that point, maybe they just lean the other direction. So either way with the Pacers, it wouldn't surprise me, but I'm just not going to pick them to climb their way out of a hole in an Eastern Conference that could end up being more competitive than what people think, especially with the injuries that they're dealing with. Now let's hit on some teams in the Western Conference. Just 2 teams here because I think for the most part it's been pretty chalky in the West. And I was just looking for a way to talk about Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs. I mean, they're 4-0. They're the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. Am I buying? Am I selling? I am buying. I am over-leveraged on my Spurs stock. I can't wait to get down to San Antonio and see them in a game. I am kicking myself for not going opening night against the Mavericks. I mean, I probably can't afford the tickets because it was probably priced through the roof for Cooper Flagg's opening night. But goddamn, that Wemby game, their first game in Dallas, that was such a special performance from Wemby. I mean, the highlights were just out of control. You had the up fake on the baseline on PJ Washington. PJ Washington is a foot shorter than the guy. He still jumps. Then he goes underneath, gets an and one dunk where he cradles it and finishes on the other side of the rim. He also had like that play where he had a block that went directly to a teammate. So it was really like a block into a pass where he immediately was able to retain possession. Then he gets the ball back. He puts it between his legs like 3 times, gets into a step back 3, gets fouled and 1. it was out of control. It was one of the best games of basketball that I've had the privilege of watching. Wemby is unbelievable. Like, you can really say anything you want about Victor Wembanyama, and I'm not going to say you're wrong. Like, if you want to say he has a legitimate chance to be the best player ever, I understand how stupid that is. You can still say it. Like, you can. He does things that we've never seen. There's no ceiling for the guy whatsoever. Obviously, 99% of this is going to boil down to health. We've never seen a guy that can move like that at that size, point blank, period. So the health record for guys of that size or even a few inches shorter than him is not great. So that's the worst thing that you can say about this experience, but he just looks so much better than what he did in previous years. And in previous years, it was already really special. What's changed is he looks a lot stronger. Like, it's not necessarily radically different, right? He's still super skinny and whatnot, but he does look a lot sturdier, I would say. Apparently he focused on functional strength this offseason in between his like monk sessions or whatever he was doing this offseason. I'm sure you guys heard about that already. But the shot diet is way better. He's cutting down on the three-point attempts. He's cutting down on the mid-range attempts. They're being a lot more purposeful with how they're getting him the ball, with putting him in spots where it's advantageous, where he can just catch and score around the rim. But he's still so fluid as an athlete. Like, the handle looks way better. He's not getting bumped off his spots nearly as much. And he can still get to those shots. He can still get to the mid-range. He can still take 5 or 6 or 7 threes a game if he wants to, because he hits them at a decent clip. And the fact that he can get to those shots at the end of a close game and there's nobody on the planet that can contest him, like, again, there's just no ceiling for this guy offensively. And defensively, he's already one of the best players that we've ever seen. Like, he's averaging 5 blocks a game, and on the season, he's at, I should mention this at the top, 31 points a game, 14 rebounds, 5 blocks, 3 assists, 2 steals, right? And that's not even including all the attempts that he deters, right? People are not entering the paint against the Spurs because they know what he can do, because they're scared. And they should be scared. It's frightening to watch. It really is. So that's where I'm at on Wemby. The ceiling is the roof. Whatever the quote is, he is so damn good. And the rest of the team is coming into place as well. I mean, Castle is a two-way dog. He made the Mavs look so stupid for playing Cooper Flag and point guard his opening night. He's just hounding him 94 feet, making his life a living hell. Harper looks like a seasoned veteran already who could be a special playmaker right away. It's going to be really cool with the size of those guys that they're going to be able to play both of those guards alongside De'Aaron Fox once he comes back. That, again, is like a Ewing theory thing where hopefully Fox doesn't disrupt all the good that San Antonio is doing right now. I think he's too good of a player not to, and there's going to be games where they're going to need his scoring and ball handling late in games. You can never have enough guys that can create. I think he'll buy in, and obviously he knows that this is Wemby's team. So I'm hoping that it doesn't affect the rhythm of the team, but it is one of those things where, like, if you knew you were getting Dylan Harper, would you still sign Fox to that big contract? Would you still have made that trade in the offseason? I don't really know, but I'm buying the Spurs. I'm not saying, again, they're not going to be a top 3 seed in the West, but I think everything else is probably on the table. Like, I think I had them at 8. Maybe they could even creep into a top 5 seed in a loaded Western Conference, which would just be a massive achievement. It's all going to ride on Wemby's health, but I'm buying what I'm seeing out of San Antonio so far, and I can't wait to continue to talk about the Spurs as the season goes on. Final buy-sell here, we have the Dallas Mavericks. Again, they're playing against the Indiana Pacers right now, but before today, they were 1-3. Not looking great. They're currently the 14 seed in the Western Conference, and I think I need to buy the fact that they are going to have a rough year. It does pain me to say this. I do like when the Mavericks are good. It's good for business. It's good to be in a city that is really invested in their team, and they're still going to be super fun to watch. I can't wait to watch more Cooper Flag, but it's just a little bit of everything. I will say I did see a report right before doing this segment that Anthony Davis left today's game with leg soreness. Not great. Don't know what that means. No one knows what that means at this point in time, but if he's already banged up, I mean, you can just punt the season goodbye right there. I know that Lively's already been in and out of the lineup. I know that Daniel Gafford, I don't think, has even played a game this season, and I also just don't trust Jason Kidd to be the guy on a team that doesn't have a generational player on it anymore. I mean, maybe Cooper Flag turns into that, but without Luka, what does Jason Kidd look like? I don't know. So far, he's made the decision to play Cooper Flag at point guard in his first couple games ever, making the kid look bad. Really frustrating for me. I know he's already moved away from that a little bit. They've played D'Angelo Russell basically more minutes every single game as the season has gone on, and I'm not saying that D'Lo is a godsend because he is the most volatile player you're going to find, but at least with D'Lo, you know he's played point guard at a high level. He knows how to handle the ball, get others involved. Just because Cooper Flag can do it doesn't mean that he should. He's like 18 years old. He needs to get his sea legs about him in the NBA. He shouldn't have to worry about getting his teammates involved, making plays for other people, bringing the ball up the court against NBA defenses that are leaning into pressing a little bit more. It's just way too much to ask of him. They didn't have him do that at Duke, man. And now you're going to ask him to do that against the San Antonio Spurs and maybe the best defense in the NBA, night one. It is funny, on the Wemby thing real quick, I should mention, that performance week one, he was doing that against Dallas, and that was the best equipped team, maybe in all of basketball, to guard him, with Lively, who's like 7'2". Gafford wasn't playing, but whatever. You still have Anthony Davis out there, who's an all NBA level defender. You have Cooper Flag, that's massive, and Wemby made all those guys look like kids, by the way. But going back to Dallas and Cooper Flag, I feel like they're already pretty snake bitten with the injuries. We don't know when Kyrie's going to return. I do think they'll move away from playing Cooper at point guard, but it's going to take him a little bit of time. And there's always going to be one team in the West that really disappoints. And I'm not saying for sure it's going to be the Mavs. It's obviously way too early to tell. I don't know why I'm making myself do this exercise, but if I had to pick buy or sell the Mavericks being bad right about now, I'm going to buy it, because there's just going to be a few teams in the West that underperform. And with the injuries early on for Dallas and the questionable coaching from Jason Kidd, I'm going to say that they are that team that disappoints this year in the West. Final thing I wanted to talk about, I added one more segment because I'm like an NBA addict over here, but a quick rookie report. I know we talked about a lot of rookies already. I did mention that VJ Edgecombe has passed Cooper Flag for Rookie of the Year favorite on some betting sites, so do with that information what you will. I'd say if you can get Cooper Flag at a value, that's probably the play. I'm sorry for not calling out VJ earlier. I didn't know the guy was going to be year 3 Anthony Edwards from day 1, but overall, Flag has been up and down to start, but I think the flashes, the highlights, the transition dunks that he's already had, like one game out of the season so far, have shown enough that he's going to be a star. Like, everybody loves that guy. They can't stop gushing about him on these broadcasts. He's going to be great, so it's really exciting to watch him develop, and he's going to be fun to watch no matter what happens to the Mavs the rest of this season. Cedric Coward of the Grizzlies looks like a grown-ass man. Like, holy shit, he is way bigger and way smoother offensively than I expected. Memphis does it again. Looks like they crushed that pick. The Trey Johnson highlights are sick. I mean, a hooper's hooper. Feels like he kind of market corrected Cam Whitmore already, who's been struggling quite a bit with his new team in Washington. I mean, Trey Johnson can just score at every level. So he's super fun to watch. I mean, Dylan Harper, mentioned him a little bit in the San Antonio segment, but he just looks so smooth out there. Again, another guy, doesn't look like a rookie whatsoever with the way that he can get in the lane. He can just get to his spots as will. The jumper looks pretty smooth. The defense is going to come along. I like what I've seen from Harper. I think he could be good value for Rookie of the Year as well. I think there's a world in which he wins it. Free Hanson Yang as well. Just going to throw it out there. Not get enough minutes for me as much as I'd like in Portland. And just in general, final thing on the rookies. It's just so exciting to have a fun rookie class again. I mean, I did make the most of what we saw last year with Reece Shea and Sarr and guys like Jalen Wells that came out of nowhere and whatever, but I mean, it's night and day already compared to the rookie class of last year. Like, this is just so much more exciting than what it was before. We are so lucky to have this great rookie class, so it's going to be exciting to see these guys grow as the season goes on. So that's going to do it for this podcast today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. One more quick call out. Actually, the NBA Cup does start on Friday, which is news to me. I just kind of noticed that right before recording this podcast. I'm not going to do the full NBA Cup preview. I don't really know who that's for when I did that in years past. I haven't really looked at the groups and all that stuff, but I'm going to just optimistically predict that we're going to get a very exciting NBA Cup between some young teams that are surging right about now. So again, not going to dive in the weeds too much on it, but just to have a take out there on paper before this thing starts, give me San Antonio. I'm going to keep taking the San Antonio Kool-Aid, drinking as much as I can, and give me them over Detroit. I think it's going to be one of those teams in the East that's like jockeying for position right now. Maybe Orlando can figure themselves out in the NBA Cup. Maybe Atlanta can as well. They're always pretty good in that cup. But I'm going to go with Detroit. I just think that eventually, like, they've had some shooting woes as well, but I think theirs are a little bit more correctable with guys like Duncan Robinson, who will start making some shots for them and whatnot. And I really like what I've seen from Asar Thompson. So give me San Antonio over Detroit in the NBA Cup. In general, the basketball has been amazing. I hope you guys are enjoying the season as much as I am. There's still so much for me to get caught up on. I feel like I'm making these takes without watching any of these teams enough, but that's the beauty of making some NBA content this early in the season. So I'll be back with another episode next week. No idea what that's going to look like, but we'll have to pay attention to the games over the next week and the storylines and see what there is to talk about. But before I let you guys go, be sure to follow @WordsWithWallace on everything. on Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're there. Social media, your support there is huge. Drop a like, drop a follow on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. We're all over the place there. So thank you guys for the support, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.